We got scan that card first. You want to start? Let's stand on those cards. I'll show you those. Okay, do it like this. Go ahead and do it. Other side, turn it over. It has to go in this light. That's what we're ready. Put it in the light. Okay, I'm gonna. Good job. Stand your box. Right.
All right, young scholars. Tonight we're going to be covering web development. There's going to be no HTML part of the course tonight, but I'm going to talk about different possibilities with employment options, show you some job listings related to them, as well as show you some examples with certain options. For example, GoDaddy offers. And then I'm going to show you some specifics within my own cPanel for my specific web business. So a cPanel is where everything specifically is stored. So within web development, you have all these specific different job opportunities you might have. Project manager, information architect, user experience designer, marketing rep, copywriter and editor, content manager, graphic designer, database administrator, network administrator, web developer, or web designer. So a project manager is basically somebody who oversees a lot of the work. They may not necessarily do a lot of the work, but they oversee what everybody else is doing. And then they'll coordinate everybody else's tasks and make sure that everybody else is doing what they need to do. The user experience designer determines how the site looks visibly. Does it accommodate as many users as it can? We talked about accessibility earlier in the semester. Does it make sure there's no issues when users visit it? I mentioned how you don't want to have a lot of strobing lights or changing in different colors and screens due to the fact that you don't want to alienate users that have issues with epilepsy, for example. You don't want them to go to your website and be forced into having a seizure based on how your website looks. Obviously, a copywriter and editor focuses more on writing specific text, whereas a content manager may write out information, but their primary focus is going to be on their organization of information. A graphic designer, their focus is more on creating graphics, images, videos, anything specific they may enhance or pop the web page. For example, you might have a nice logo image, but on the top, you don't know how to do that. You'd go and outsource that assignment to a graphic designer, have them create a nice little logo for you. You pay them, you now own that logo, you have it up on your specific web page. Whereas a web developer may do all of these specific tasks all by themselves. They're going to administer the network. make sure everything's up where it needs to be. They're gonna administer their database. Say, for example, you use Amazon. They're gonna have a database administrator that takes care of all of your financial information, your card that you have saved on there, your address you have saved on there. All of that would be in charge, or the person in charge of that would be a database administrator. That's why if you ever get hacked for something, a company will send you out an email. Oh, this is what you need to do. Call this number to get free protection for the next year, whatever it may be. Because they can see, okay, these people were compromised. We need to reach out to them. So I want to show you some examples here of some of these specific jobs and specific aspects associated with them. So for example, a web developer is going to need to be able to develop web and mobile-based applications and work on maintenance and enhancements. Enhancements is just changes that improve the website. So I believe it was Dylan, right? You're focusing on like improving your parents' website.
Yes.
So you would basically be in the enhancement area. I'm going to make changes to make the website look better.
Yep.
You'll also need to know how to write web pages in a combination of languages. Like we've touched on HTML, CSS, PHP, and you have the option to also use JavaScript later in the semester because they want you to be proficient in those technologies. The most updated CSS, CSS3, the most updated HTML, which is 5, JavaScript, and jQuery, which we'll cover later on in this semester. And then you'll notice that you need experience with user interface frameworks such as Bootstrap and Foundation. So again, that ties back into user experience designer. You're starting to notice how the web developer does a little bit of all of these aspects. You're going to have experience with content management systems such as WordPress and Drupal. That ties into the content manager aspect. They're going to want you to have strong understanding of data formats such as JSON and XML, where you store data, which may even tie into copywriting and editing. They're storing text, information, data within those files. You're going to develop and maintain client websites with offering different solutions. That's the point of these proposals you've all put together. So this way we know what the person wants and we can go ahead and create it for them. And you're always going to manage the projects based on the time and the budget. That's the process and costs section of your proposal. If you promise a website within 2 months at $600, you can't have it done in 8 months at $18,000. The client's not going to accept those terms. You're going to be SOL and likely lose that client and potentially other clients. And you could see the rest of the specific aspects here as well. You want to have a history, usually when you're a web developer, of previous experience, because they're not likely just going to hire somebody off of the street to do the position for them. So another job you're listing here is for a graphic designer. Now, in this specific instance, it's just a temporary position. That is unfortunately what often happens with graphic designers, is they may only have a specific, okay, like I mentioned, I need somebody to make a logo for my website. I'll pay you $50. And it's a short-term project. Might take them an hour to do it. Okay, they're done. They move on to the next project. And again, they usually want to see a portfolio or a history of what you've done in the past. Have you created decent graphics before? Basically, why should I hire you? So with a graphic designer, they usually want you to be familiar with the specific Adobe products, InDesign, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, Photoshop, to know that you know how to play around with images and edit them. By doing that, again, you show them, hey, I'm going to be good at doing this graphic design for you. You should work with me. And again, oftentimes, a web developer might outsource something like a logo, some kind of creation to that graphic designer. The user experience designer is the one who might say like, oh, okay, putting the logo at the top looks best. Oh no, putting the logo on the left looks best. Oh no, putting the logo smack dab in the middle looks best. And again, the web developer would do a lot of these things. So the web developer might make that decision like, oh no, I definitely want the logo at the top. Whereas that specific graphic designer, that's all they worry about. I'm going to design a graphic. I'm going to create a logo for you. I'm going to create a video for you, etc. So the next type of job here I have is a UX designer, which is basically similar to the user experience designer. And you'll see here that their duties include creating a satisfying, compelling experience for all the users on the platform. So the user design person goes well beyond just a website. So you've all used like apps, right? What kind of apps do you use, Dylan?
Instagram, Twitter, Reddit.
Okay, so Instagram definitely has a user experience designer, and they decided, oh, okay, if we have 3 blocks on a row of the images, that's going to look better to a user than if we have all the images on one row, right? So how it's set up visually is primarily the job of the user experience designer. Are the people that are looking at this actually going to like the way it looks? So they create prototypes or mock-ups, which is what you did for your proposal. You had like a little drawing of what your website might look like. So they use data analytics as well to monitor the different experiences of the user. How long are the users on the website for? If they're just going to the website and leaving almost immediately, this user experience designer will go and look at that. Oh, what can we improve on our webpage? They're leaving constantly as soon as they get there. And they usually work with other members of these teams. So the user experience designer may work with the content manager. Oh, okay, you put together a post, but there's no image. You know, the users want to see an image to go along with the text, to break the text up. They don't want just a whole paragraph, 2 paragraphs of text. And they usually do what's called testing. They'll upload a web page. They may have 5 to 10 users come in and look at it. Hey, do you like the way this looks? If not, why? If so, why? And then they modify as needed. Sometimes you may just create your experience based on a specific color scheme. So, the New York Yankees, for example, it's blue and gray and white. So if you like that team, you may design your website with those specific, as we talked about in the previous class, color schemes. And then you see here that just like in the other ones, they want specific knowledge of specific programs, Adobe, Microsoft Visio, etc., HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And usually they want you to have a number of years experience before they jump in, especially now post-COVID. They may tell you, okay, you don't have to come in the office. They need to know that you're skilled enough to do the work on your own without their guidance. And then another example I have here is for a project manager. So you'll see here that a project manager has many aspects that they're worrying about. They have to worry about planning. What are the steps of the project? What do we need to do? And how do we do them? And how quickly can we do them? The scope management. What are the objectives of our project? What is the point? And that's why, as you saw in your proposal, you put together, what's your problem? What is the reason we're doing this? And then your solution addressed that problem. Then you have your budget that you set. How quickly can we get this to the customer? And at what price? Usually the quicker it is, the more expensive it is, because you're going to put in more hours to get it done as quickly as possible. Then you might have a resource schedule put together. Who's doing what at what time, so we know everything's being done. You have to worry about risks and possible issues. When you're designing individual projects like this, a risk might be, okay, we don't have enough space. We need to pay for more server space. Oh, the internet's down. We can't work today. Oh, the power went out. We can't do this project today. We may have to go to a different site to do. Communication management. Are we communicating what's going on with the client? We told the client this will be due in a week, and we're just getting started after 3 days. So we need to communicate to the client that it might take us 10 days instead of a week. And then lastly, quality management. Is the product doesn't match what we told the client that it was going to do? Does it actually look the way we told them it was going to do? So that's why when you draw these little images for your proposal, your website should look somewhat like that. It doesn't have to be 100% like that. 80% is fine. You may have decided, oh, well, if I put the text here, it's kind of disrupts the website. So I'm going to move it over here. This way it's, out of the way, and it's not the overarching picture of the website. It's not in the way. So you're, with your proposal, in essence, doing a small project. You're just creating your own website based on the proposal you put together. But the idea is that if you know how to do a small project, in theory, you could do a bigger project. But some of these roles may be outsourced. What does that mean? One of the Joshes, what does outsourcing a job role mean? Nobody?
What's the question again?
What does this mean? Some job roles may be outsourced.
Maybe
That
like
mean, oh,
a certain role is like a certain role that's already like in the list of the job. Like you may not be able to do that anymore because they may not want you to do that. I'm not sure.
Who else? Who wants to add to that?
I say that's like offloading it to another person or another entity,
Yeah,
potentially to save
it's
money.
just like outsourcing in business. And maybe you don't know how to do this. And maybe you don't feel like doing it. And maybe you don't have time to do it. You could outsource it to somebody else. The most common, like I mentioned, is with a graphic designer. Oh, I don't know how to make a logo. I'm going to pay somebody else to do it for me. That's outsourcing. So you've outsourced that job role of graphic designer to somebody else. So if I have any big graphic design projects, I'll outsource them to a friend of mine. He's an actual artist. He like draws and makes paintings for a living. So when he does smaller projects like that, they look great, they're cheap, and they get everything we need done. What's another possibility of a role you might outsource?
I
From this
know if
list.
you're like a large company, you'll often just outsource like an entire division to like another country, where I know companies like to save money, so obviously they like to outsource to other countries where the pay is lower than in the US.
Yeah.
Like manufacturing, obviously, is
So the
outsourced.
same thing applies here. Say you have a website, you're just like a blogging website, and your idea is to publish 100 articles a day. You don't have time to do that. So you may outsource the content manager job, pay 5 people to each do 20 articles a day. And you may structure that where they're paying, I don't know, $5 an article. You may structure it where you're paying them per hour. It depends on how their specific contract may work. And then you may outsource the copywriter and editor position to go through and look through all of their articles. Oh, did they make any spelling errors? We got to fix them. Did they format the page correctly the way we want it to look when it pops up on our website? The database administrator might be in-house. Okay, we need to create users for all these 5 different people that are the content managers producing those articles. You need to create accounts for the 5 copywriters that are assigned to each of them to make sure that there's no issues with their content. And all their information would be in a database. Okay, this is Joe's account that we have to pay his direct deposit to. This is Gabby's email address in case we need to contact her to see why she didn't do her 20 articles today.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So as I showed you with those job mentions before, the job ads that are posted, all of these specific companies have their own specific aspects they're focusing on. You know, the job requirements. What are we looking at? What do we want everybody to do? But the most common thing they're looking for is what, Dylan? What did I show you with all those job listings? And it says on this slide here. Portfolio. Can you show them that you know how to do this stuff? Can you show them that you're skilled in this area? Which will also usually tie into your work experience. If you say on your resume, for example, you've been a web developer for 10 years and your portfolio is only 4 websites, they're probably not going to take you seriously. If your work experience says you have 1 year of experience and your portfolio is 4 websites, they'll probably take you seriously. Okay, fine. Okay. They're just starting out. They have a little bit of experience. They have quite a bit of websites to show us that they've done, or whatever their portfolio may be. It may just be a bunch of pictures. So formal education is a little weird when it comes to these fields. So for example, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and info systems. I kind of just learned this stuff because I enjoy doing it. It was just like, oh, okay, I'll build on this. And I've done so over the last 20 years. But there are programs usually called MFA, Master of Fine Arts, that will focus on, okay, here's how you develop a website, design it, create it. Here's how you design graphics, etc., create it. Then there are also industry certifications. Adobe offers them, Google offers them, all these different companies. Basically, you go through a set method of these different procedures. They may have tests at the end to test your knowledge, make sure that you know what you're doing. You go and pass them, and you may be, oh, I'm Adobe certified. I'm Google search certified. And what that basically shows is, A, you take this seriously, because these usually cost quite a bit of money. Let's say it's $900 to go through that process for one certification. It shows that you're serious about the field. The other thing it shows is your expertise. Okay, you're certified in Adobe Illustrator. That basically tells us you know how to use Adobe Illustrator. Now, one thing you have to do, though, with your experience, portfolio, all this information, what do you have to do? As you saw with the job listings, CSS is at level 3, HTML is at level 5. When those go and change, you have to keep up to date. Make sure that, hey, if CSS is now 4, you're now using CSS 4 instead of CSS 3. Make sure that you are up to date, know all of the specific things that you're doing. Now, a project manager may just decide to outsource all of these different projects. Okay, Dylan's doing graphics. Josh are going to be the content managers. Albert's going to be our database administrator. Make sure that all of our information is stored where it needs to go. Taj is going to be our marketing rep. He's going to go and promote all these different things we want to sell. And who's Epic Gamer? Is that Eva? Epic Gamer Moment 62. Doesn't have a name. But whoever that is would have another aspect of the job they may do. So all of these different roles can work together and help us produce a great website that a user is going to enjoy visiting. So what's the difference between a front-end web developer and a back-end web developer?
A back end would manage all the infrastructure and, like, I guess the easiest way to say it is the things that the end user does not see, whereas the front end web developer manages the aspects that the user does see.
Yep. So the back-end web developer makes sure the website's secure. Make sure we have the right hosting. Do we have enough hosting power to store all of the information we need? Make sure that there's no malware or issues on the website. Because if a website's infected and you go to it, your computer may now be infected. because they didn't bother to resolve those issues. Whereas the front end web developer focuses more on what you see. They put together, okay, we need HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript, JSON, XML, whatever is put together that you visibly see on your web page when you load it. So the front end web developer is usually going to work with that user experience designer. Whereas the back end web developer is usually going to work with who, Dylan?
The administrators, like the network administrator and stuff, maybe.
Yep. Our database administrator. Do we have enough storage capacity? Can we get all this stuff there? The network administrator. How often does this web page run? Is there any downtime? We have to address the downtime. We want to make sure that anytime a user comes to the page, that they can access it. It can't be down because there's malware on it. It takes us, X amount of time to get it back up. We can't be hacked. We want everybody to be able to utilize the website at all times. So address this, we have what's called the web development cycle. We start by conceptualizing. We put our idea in our minds. What do we want to do? What is our website going to be about? What's the purpose of it? What's the problem? And then our solution addresses it. So we analyze, we find information. So, for example, Dylan is updating his parents' website for his project. So he may have gone and looked at other doctors' websites to see what specifically they have on theirs and his parents don't, and then possibly make changes based on. So then you put together your design. That's basically what your image that you created, your faux website, that, what did I call it in the proposal project? Just a sketch of your image. Then you would go ahead and produce it, put it together, make it. Then you would put it out and test it. Okay, Josh makes a website. He's going to have the other Josh, Dylan, and Rob all look at it. Do you like it? Does it look good? What's wrong with it? What can be fixed? If it's good, you just go ahead and launch it. If it's bad, you may go back to that design phase. What can I fix? What can I change? What can be better? Then you make those fixes, produce it, and go back to testing it. Okay, can you look at it, these updates, see what they did? Are they better or worse? If they're better, okay, now we launch it. If they're worse, go back to the drawing board. We go back to that design phase. Once the website is launched, we then get into our maintenance mode. Oh, okay, we need to update our email address because we changed it. Oh, we need to update our phone number because we changed it. Oh, we hired 8 new employees. Let's add their profiles up on our page. And you're constantly evaluating your website. Very rarely do you have a website like ESPN that, okay, they just have a format set up and it's very rarely changed. More often than not, you'll go to a website and it might look completely different from the last time you saw it. Now, it might take them like a year before they make these changes. It may look one way in 2023 and look completely different in 2024. That is entirely up to, usually, that user experience designer. Yeah, the website's now out of date. We need to update it. So they evaluate that and go ahead and change it. Like I said, the other big thing with evaluation is how long are the users on the website for? If it's a very short amount of time, they're all leaving after 2 seconds, something has to be changed. So in the conceptualization or putting together basically the planning, you want to determine the intended audience. A website like ESPN, their audience is people who like sports. You know, ABC.com, their intended audience is people that watch ABC. I want to find information about ABC. What's going to be on the show tonight? You know, what's happening with Jeopardy? Are they gonna have a full-time host, or are they just gonna keep bouncing back and forth between a couple of different people they've chosen? So you always want to think about short-term and long-term goals with your website. So Dylan, you're remaking your parents' doctor website. What's a short-term goal?
I guess a short-term goal is just to make it just to fix one aspect of the website, like fix the hours website, or make one page more mobile friendly.
Okay. Like you said, some of the links don't even work, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a short-term goal, making sure all the parts of the website work. What would be a long-term goal for that website?
I guess a long-term goal could be to make it more discoverable in like search engines, because I know SEO could take a long time for like Google to, update and boost your page up to the top, or make the whole site more friendly on multiple screen sizes.
The long-term goal is going to be get your parents more patience, right? Get people to see that. Okay, the SEO. Okay, when I search for doctors in that area, Dylan's parents are going to be one of the first couple that pop up. So long-term, use SEO to get it in front of more people, easily searched, to get more patients, to get them a bigger practice. They may have to open a bigger office. Ideally, long-term goals are growth. How do we get more money? How do we make more money? What can we do? So the idea is either to get more visitors, like in the case of Dylan's parents' website, get more visitors, get more patients. The more people that know about it, the more potential patients. The other possibility is to get more sales. In the past, I've had people create websites where, they were selling shoes or they were selling hats. So let's say 10 people visit the website a day. If only one of them is purchasing items, that's no good, right? 1 out of 10, that's pretty low. So if you have 1 million people and 1 out of every 10 person is making a purchase, that's a much better percentage. What would that be? 1 out of 10. What is that? 100,000? So 100,000 people buying a product as opposed to 1 going to be much better. Who was it?
You got it? Okay, just bring it back.
Thank you.
Josh, was it you? You said you were going to make a website for your church?
Yeah, that's me.
So you might actually have both of these aspects apply. We want more people to visit the website, but instead of sales, it might be we get more donations. So we have 10 visitors today. The website doesn't look too good. Josh fixes it up. It looks great. Now he's getting 1,000 visitors today. Now there's a section. Oh, okay. Feel free to donate to the church, and 10 people do it. Okay. That's not necessarily sales, but it does improve the specific aspect. The website has now converted users into quote unquote customers. They're donating to the church. So the analysis aspect, you want to have what's informative, the topics. Like I mentioned with Dylan's, he may want to look at other specific doctor websites. What does this website have that my parents' website has? Josh may want to look at what does the other church websites in our area have that we don't have? What do we need to include? Oh, there's profile pages about the pastor and the reverend. Oh, there's information about the CCD class. Oh, there's information about when we're actually having our services. Oh, we need information about, open prayer time. Anybody could just come in and say a prayer as they need to. So what kind of functionality might you need? So on Dylan's, you had some kind of forms on your parents' website, right? Like sign up forms or something like that.
Yeah.
So you want to determine when it comes to functionality, do I just want them to be able to go on that website, type in all their info and hit the submit button? Or do I want them to have that form there, have to print it out, fill it out, send it to us? So that could be tied into functionality. Do you want to make it easier for them, or do you just want to be basic? So for Dylan's parents' website, it may largely depend on their audience. Are they older? If they're an older group that are their patients, and they may just be fine with going to the website and printing out a form and filling it out there and then sending it in. If they're younger users, they may want to just type it in online and be done with it.
It's not in the series.
But again, as I touched on previously with conceptualization, with the attendant audience, ideally you want to include all of your specific audiences. You might even have an option where both are possible. That younger audience could just fill out the form online. The older audience has the option to print out that document they need to fill out and just mail it in.
Yeah.
So we touched on reviewing competitors. They may not necessarily be competitors. They're just local fellow businesses or churches that give you ideas on what you need to do.
Yeah.
But then you need to estimate your cost.
Yeah.
If I go ahead and make this grandiose website, like let's say there's a doctor's office near where Dylan's parents work, and they paid somebody $12 million to put together this great website, upkeep it, everything. Do you think Dylan's parents would be smart to do the same thing?
No.
No. Why would they pay somebody $12 million for a website when they could just say, "Oh, Dylan, you're doing this stuff in class. You just go do it. We'll make sure that you eat this week." So there's not going to be any real cost for them to have Dylan update the website for them. So that's got a great deal of benefit to them. In a year, they may have 55 new patients just because Dylan spent a couple hours updating their website for them. With the website that Josh makes for the church, they may get 200 new parishioners that come to church every week. Just from, oh, okay, we have this website. We could see what's going on. Okay, today's service is about Matt 3:16. Tomorrow's service is about XYZ, etc. And you may have to not necessarily redesign all the time, but you may need to maintain, as you saw here, the maintenance means updating. So in Josh's case with the church website, he may have to go on there every, let's say, Friday night and update. Okay, this is what's happening in Saturday's service. This is what's happening in Sunday's service. So then once you have all that information, what am I doing? What's the best way to do it? Then you worry about the design. How can we get
Okay.
all of that information onto our website, which is the organization aspect of it? Then you prototype it like you did with the sketch you made. Okay, how's it going to look? What's it going to look like? What do we do? And that is actually called a wireframe. This is exactly what you guys did with your proposal. A sketch or blueprint of the web page. You've all seen blueprints of like houses before. No? A blueprint of a house is basically just Dylan, you were going to answer?
Oh, I was gonna say yes.
Go ahead. Tell us what a blueprint of a house is.
It basically shows, I guess it would show the basic infrastructure of the house. Like it's it's usually fairly elaborate as to, how it's gonna look cosmetically, I guess the front end and the back end of the house, if we were to relate that to websites.
Yeah. Where's the walls? Where's the where's the piping for the bathrooms? Where's the electrical outlets? All of that specifically is going to be mentioned in the blueprint. It's not going to show, okay, here's the furniture, here's the paint color of the wall, but it'll show you, okay, the most basic information you need to know. So when you buy a house, you may look at the blueprint. Like, oh, okay, this wall is going to be a pain in the butt to knock out. So we'll just leave it the way it is.
There you go.
Whereas that wireframe or sketch basically does the same thing for your web page. Where are we going to put the header? So the header is right here. Where are we going to put the navigation? Right here, your menu. Where are we going to put the content? It looks like they have the content down in the bottom half of the class, or the web page rather. Where are we going to put the footer? Okay. Always at the bottom for the most part. Where are we going to put our images? We have one image here. We have one image here. We have another image there. As I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago, you want to limit the amount of size-wise with the images. If an image is too big, it's going to take too long to load. You might want to also avoid having a great deal of pictures. 5 or 6 is fine. 185 and 186 isn't really going to work for you. So the idea is you want to have a general idea of what your website is going to look like. You're testing. You go back. Does this website look good? And that's why I had you create a sketch. You may go back and look at that sketch and be like, yeah, this isn't great. I'm going to go back and change it. I need to, the header doesn't look good there. I'm going to get rid of this image and move the header over to the center. By drawing out your little sketch, you see it visually. You might have an idea in your mind, but drawing out that sketch, you could see it and say, okay, these things look better over here. This looks better down there, etc. So when you're producing a website, you want to have an authoring tool. What's going to help us create this page? Are you just going to, are you an expert? You're going to do it all in Notepad? Or do you want a tool like Front Page years ago, or Dreamweaver, or as we've used in class, that WYSIWYG, the what you see is what you get editor, where we're just putting it up and we run and it does what we need it to do. What does organizing your site files mean? Your folders, your different, where everything is. Is it all in the index section? Is it in different folders? Like you're gonna have a CSS folder for your CSS files, a scripts folder for your JavaScript file, maybe a styles folder for your CSS files, etc. And you need to know that so you can add information where it goes. So for example, on my website, I have all different blogs for the different pages that I teach or the classes that I teach, but then I link the syllabi. All of the syllabi are in one specific folder. So I know each time I teach a new class, I just upload the syllabi into that folder. So all the content is where I know it's supposed to be and where it needs to be. And you could always test that out. Usually having too many things in your quote unquote index folder is a bad idea. So if you have 85 images, go make an images folder. Put all the images into that folder and then refer back to them, the full URL, yourwebsite.com/images/ and then the full name of that specific image. So testing is one of the most important things in web development, just like in programming. You always want to meet the customer needs in web development. So this is usually the biggest aspect of web development. You send the specific web page off to the clients. Hey, does this look good? They give you feedback. No, I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the color scheme. The images are too big. It takes too long to load. What's the biggest problem though with testing?
The problem is that it's not perfect, and oftentimes you're only testing the website on like one browser, on one connection, on one client. So while the test site might work on one client's computer, may not work on a wide range of devices.
Yeah. You create this website. It works fine on Microsoft Edge, for example. You go and open an iPhone and look at it on Safari and it looks awful. The client may not necessarily know that. They may just, oh, I only use a computer, so it's cool that it looks good on the computer. That's fine. The other big issue is if you were to go and upload the website and make it live, it's on the web. You can go to ESPN.com, for example. You see the website live there. The client doesn't like it. It's now live. Everybody can go see it. The client decides not to pay you. They don't like it. You didn't do what they asked you to do. They can go promote that and say, oh yeah, everybody go look at the website. Yeah, it looks great. And then tell you it looks awful. They're not paying you. It may take you an hour to get all of their stuff off of that website, pull it down. They didn't pay you. It's your property. Take it off of their server. In that hour, they could have had 3,500 people go visit that, get business off of that. So what will often happen is when you're in the testing phase, they'll just send the files off. Okay, look at this index.html. Does it look like what you want? Okay, all right. You approve, you paid. Now we'll put everything live. Now it's going to be up on the server. So there's different types of testing involved with that. This is what Dylan said was an issue with his parents' website. The links were out of date. They didn't work. That's the most common thing you're going to check during the testing phase. Does everything link back to where it needs to go? Is there a way to go back to each of the different pages? Do we have updated HTML and CSS? Does it work? Like I mentioned years ago, with Internet Explorer, you would have to create a different CSS file for it to actually load properly on the Internet Explorer. So then there's usability testing as well. Can we access the website? Does it load when we visit it? So any of these can be done at all of the stages. At the early stage, you sketch out, what do we look like? At the design stage, okay, we have a general page uploaded we can look at. Then once it's live within the testing phase, okay, do all the links work? Does it do everything we need it to do? And then once it's tested and we know everything works, we send it off to the client or whoever, get their full approval, then we launch it. Everything's now up on the server, it's live, they've paid us. But what does this mean, test again after upload?
To make sure that the website actually works in its final state, because there could be variables between the test site and the actual uploaded site.
Right. So for example, we use this WYSIWYG. And I showed you last week how the example on my page worked because the link to the PHP file was also on my web page. But when we put it in the WYSIWYG editor, it didn't, because it didn't know where that PHP link was. I had the wrong link set up. So once I changed it, it went and worked. I think I mentioned this 2 weeks ago when we talked about PHP. What needs to happen for PHP to actually work?
You need to actually have like a PHP like thing on your server.
Yep, PHP actually has to be up on the server. HTML, we could just open it just on a computer like this. If I created a .html file, I could just double click in my folder here and it would open it. There'd be no issue. Whereas a PHP file has to be live on a server, uploaded somewhere. So that's why sometimes you may not be able to test certain things just on your computer and then be able to test it once it's live. So what does this mean? Maintenance, the never-ending task.
You have to make sure that the site continues to adapt to your client, that it continues just simply working.
Yep.
Like you just upload the site and you're done with it. You don't have to touch it ever again.
And this is how you continue to make money off of your clients. Any constant updates or changes that need to happen with the web page. I showed you a couple weeks ago that website from Jamie Kretsch from Monmouth University, how it looked like it hadn't been updated in 20 years, because it hasn't. And you notice how bad it was. None of the links worked. The images were awful. We had a whole bunch of different comments we wrote on the board, remember? If it went and was updated, you would have information about the different classes, maybe syllabus, maybe the course description. As those changes happened, like I mentioned with my own, I create a blog for a page or a class. Okay, the course description, the syllabi link there, any recordings, any PowerPoints, etc., uploaded and updated for each of the different options. So you're always going to evaluate your website. So Josh is making that website for his church. Right now, the objective is going to be to get more parishioners, possibly get donations. In a year from now, those goals might change. Okay, we've got 1,000 people visiting the site a day. we're getting 100 donations a day. Those initial goals and objectives, they've been met. Now it's the purpose of the website. Well, what can we change on the website to do better? Who's ever seen like public broadcast television?
Sometimes.
A lot of times, Sunday mornings, they'll have like a recording of a church. And there'll be some sermon somewhere that you could watch. Maybe that is the new objective for the church website in a year. Josh is now going to, okay, we're going to live stream to all of our parishioners that can't get to church. You know, maybe they're older, maybe they're infirmed. For whatever reason, they can't get to the church. We now have a new goal and objective for the webpage. The same thing could possibly be done with Dylan's parents page. Okay. In a year from now, we've got more clients, we've got more patients. But it's been a little hectic in the office. What could Dylan do in that similar vein? This is kind of a big thing now. Dylan, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, make it easier to access like telehealth services and such.
Yeah. Okay, you just click a button on their page and his father pops up. Hey, how can I help you today? What are your symptoms? What can I do for you? So you're constantly reevaluating the purpose. Well, what is the reason I have this website? You may make those goals in a month, and maybe a year, and then you go and you might add on to it. Okay, Josh is going to add on, hey, we're going to stream all the sermons. Dylan's going to, we're going to have telehealth for, And again, all of these change over time. So we touched on folders and file organizations. The reason these matter is when you go ahead and link in whatever your specific items are, you need to know where they are. So there's 3 different examples here. This would be right within the index folder, this javelina.html. In this second example, there's a folder, some kind of folder. We don't know the name because it just says ... Then index.html. Then in this last example, we have a folder we don't know about, a second folder called events that has weekend.html in it. So without knowing where your files are, it's hard to navigate and display them. You might have dead links. They don't go where they're supposed to go. And I'll show you that momentarily when I show you my specific hosting and login with this file organization. So here's an example, a folder called Casita has the index.html, contact.html, and the casita.css. Then you might have an images folder, which has a logo GIF and a scenery JPEG. Then you might have a rooms folder that has canyon.html, javelina.html. So if you were linking them, you would do /canyon or /rooms canyon.html. Because it's in the rooms folder, the canyon.html page. So that's what the full URL is. And then similarly, you have an events folder, weekend.html, festival.html. So ideally, everything is going to be organized based on its relationship. What is it used? Like I said, you might have 85 images. Ideally, you're putting them all in the images folder, so you know where all of them are and can determine them. So this is going to be beyond the scope of this class. I might do this in 2106 in the spring if I get permission to. You can purchase a domain name even if you have a brand new business or an established business. Did we talk about SEO yet in this class?
Not yet, I don't think.
No? Okay. So the primary thing you want to do when buying a domain name is utilize SEO to your advantage. I think I showed you when you search for sports, ESPN is not the first thing that comes up. It's like sports.yahoo, CBS Sports, etc. They have that keyword in the name. So when you're choosing a domain name, you want a domain name that's going to be brief, small as possible. It's going to describe your business, and it's going to be a top-level domain. .com is for commerce, .net is for network, .biz is for business, .us for the US, .mobile, .org, organization. What's one you can't buy that you use all the time?
.gov.
You can't buy a .gov. What's the other one that you use all the time, though?
.edu.
Yep. But once you have a domain, those are the two you want to have when you do a link exchange. Get a bunch of colleges linked to your website, refer back to you. Get a bunch of government agencies, refer back to you. Because these are pages that are going to have high page rank. They've existed a while. People go to them, even if they're not going to, let's say somebody goes to FDU's website to find my email as an example. They may never come back. But that visit, all those visits, for example, when you were choosing college, you may have gone to visit 10 different colleges. You only actually attended one. You always want to verify the availability. Can I actually get that email or that website domain? If you can't buy it, certain domain companies may give you the option to purchase it from whoever the owner is. And I'll show you that momentarily. So you want to register a domain name. Once you've come up with the idea, you go to a registrar, you purchase the information. Then you may have what is called WHOIS information put in the database. You may put your name, your specific address, maybe the company's address instead. And this is all tied into, I believe I mentioned about ICANN fees. You pay that small little ICANN fee every year so that they keep all of your information up to date and visible. So if you go to GoDaddy's website, as an example, you can go in and search for a domain name. You'll notice right now they have, and this is usually what they constantly do in order to hook new users. They'll give you the option to purchase a new domain name with the first year at a completely ridiculous price. So right now it's requiring a 3-year purchase. So usually a .com domain name at GoDaddy is going to be $19.99 a year. So usually this is like a 2-year option. So if you purchase 2 years at a time, it'll be $20 for the 2 years instead of $39.98 or whatever. In this instance, it's with a 3-year purchase. So you'd have the $19.99, $19.99, and your first year as a penny. So it'd be $39.99 for 3 years instead of 3 years times $19.99. So give me a domain name that you want me to search for. Like Josh, what is your church called? Josh, you there? What would be a good domain name for your church? No, he's not there. Dylan, what would be a good name for your parent doctor page?
Their current address is hoppymd.com.
Yeah, not a bad one.
HoppyMD.com.
Yeah.
So since that we know that's taken, maybe instead, Hoppy Doc. Is that good?
Yeah.
No. Doc could be anything. Doc could be like a Word file. So maybe instead we do drhoppy.com. Oh, okay, they're doctors. Oh, okay. So when we search doctor in our area, maybe they come up. So you always want to have that specific keyword that's going to help any of the potential visitors. So in this instance, drhoppy.com is available. And it tells us both Hoppy and doctor are highly valued keywords with an average sale price of $2,500 and a little over $2,000. Doctor is a widely used keyword. That's why we would ideally want this domain name. Because now we search, doctors in our area. Okay, Dr. Hoppy might come up. We put in specifically Dr. Hoppy. Okay, drhoppy.com shows up. But because doctor is highly competitive, it's the same idea as with ESPN. When you search sports, ESPN wasn't the first thing that came up. Actual domains with sports inside were the first things that came up. That's why you might want to have drhoppy.com. When you search for doctor, oh, okay, that may be one of the first things that came up. Because right now, unless somebody's searching for MD, they may not necessarily get to Dylan's parents' page there. So one of the most important decisions you'll make for a website is with respect to web hosting. So years ago, I used a web hosting company called HostGator. And they started with $3 a month. Then the same service kept getting bumped up every year. So then finally it was $10 a month and my websites were hacked. What do you think happened?
Yeah. That's what.
If you operate a hosting site that got compromised, your clients' websites may have gotten compromised and you could have lost a lot of business.
Yep. My clients' pages were compromised. I reached out to them. Oh, well, we don't have time to fix it. Give us $2,500 per website. We'll fix it. So they were claiming to offer certain services, even though it was that low price. And then when I actually needed those services, oh well. So I switched to another company and they offered all those things that HostGator claimed they were going to offer for $50 a month. Same thing. Hack occurred. Oh, well, unless you give us $2,500, we're not going to do anything. So then I switched to GoDaddy. No issues with the hacking. Why do you think I left GoDaddy, Dylan?
Maybe you left them because they had other issues that didn't have to do with hacking, like maybe they had reliability issues, maybe you found them too expensive, maybe
Yep.
they didn't meet your needs.
So GoDaddy nickels and dimes you for everything. So GoDaddy is the only hosting company that'll actually charge you for an email. It was like $2.99 a month for an email. Every other company, oh, you're paying for hosting? All right, just make as many emails as you feel like it. You might have, 8 client websites, and all 8 clients want their own email address. Okay, just go in and create them. Whereas GoDaddy, oh, you want 8? Oh, they each got to pay $2.99 a month. And you go back to a client, I'm not paying $3 for an email. It was free before. So it gets you into hot water. So there are different types of web hosting possibilities. The primary one is for small to medium websites. Virtual hosting. It's on a server with a number of other websites. It doesn't take up a great deal of resources, so this is perfectly fine. But when you're using those, you have to consider, are we going to grow in the future? How many visitors are we going to have? If we have too many visitors in the future, our page may not load. We're on the same server as a bunch of other different websites. So a lot of these hosting companies will offer you guaranteed uptime. Okay, 99% of the time your page is going to be able to be loaded. And ideally you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, it'll be like the internet. Have any of you tried to access like Comcast internet during the middle of the night? No. So usually, Dylan, you have?
Yeah, at home my service provider is Comcast, and I have a lot of things to say about them.
What happens if you're on late at night with Comcast?
Yeah, oftentimes the ISP has downtime.
Yeah, it's much slower.
Always
If you're
surprising
trying to
events.
download something, it takes forever. What else, Dylan?
They oftentimes just have service outages out of nowhere, like unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And you have
Like
to
it'll
wait
just,
hours to
your
go back.
internet will be off for 15 minutes just randomly. Because their thinking is, oh, everybody's online during the day. Nobody's up late. We'll cut it off. Like think of like if you've ever taken a train after like midnight until like 5 a.m., it's very difficult to get one. So if you have a larger scale website, you need all these resources. You may just have what is called a dedicated web server. Okay, that one server deals with all of our websites. There's nobody else. There's no other people's pages or websites on that server. It's dedicated. It's specific to me. I'm the only one that could put information on there. What usually happens with that is you usually have 24/7 tech support. Oh, we have an issue? I call a guy. The guy answers. Whereas with the virtual hosting, you might have to sit in a chat and wait. You're not a priority. They'll get to you when they get to you. Whereas with this dedicated web server, okay, you're in charge. You're the person. We got to talk to you. Why do you think that is?
Because if it's dedicated, then it probably costs more money, and
Yep.
that means you're probably a more important client to them and they want to retain you.
It costs more money, so you're the priority. You're paying them more. They want to provide you with a better experience. So their viewpoint is you're now an exclusive client. You're using us for everything. Okay, we need to give you a reason to stick with us. But you could also use what's called a co-located web server. Let's say you only have 8 websites. All 8 take up a specific part of that co-located web server. If you had just one, you might just have a dedicated web server. Okay, we have a great big website. For example, ESPN is more than likely on a dedicated web server. It's specifically for that website. That's all it's used for. Whereas the co-located web server, you might have 8 different ones all working together. Whereas the virtual, there may be 180 on that one server. So they're all taking up resources. If you have too many files, they wouldn't load. So you might have to go to a co-located web server. So when you're choosing a virtual host, you have to consider all of these specific processes. What's the operating system? What's the server software? What's the bandwidth? Do they offer tech support? What's the cost? How much space do I have? Do I have email access? How easy is it to upload files? Is there encryption? Is the site going to be safe? Are they going to offer backups? Do I have to go in and make a backup of my website? Will they offer me statistics? How many visitors are going to the site? What's the cost? What's the price? That's almost always the most specific thing that everybody focuses on. So I'm going to log into my cPanel here. Show you all some of this stuff. So you'll notice here I have website services billing, all of my information in one spot. So I have 9 websites. I have my hosting plan renewed through January. If I want to email market, I can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pull up my specific page and show you all about those different items. So you notice email accounts, I have one set up, not charged or anything. But the primary focus is on the file manager. So you notice that public underscore HTML, that's where your index is. You'll notice that I have all these subfolders for the different colleges. Then I have images, layout, blog, etc. And as I mentioned, syllabus. That stores all of the different syllabi I have for the different classes. So like I said, anytime I want to add in information, a new course I'm teaching, I upload the syllabi to that syllabus folder. Any new images I might have, I'm going to update and upload to that images folder. Anything I want to put in the blog, I update and add into that folder. So similarly, if you wanted to use or be a content manager, you might use one of these WordPress options. So I'll pull up the FDU one to make it easier for you guys. And when I log into my WordPress page, it now says that I have 2 plugins I need to update. So I go ahead and select, update them. And they went updated quick. So if I go and open that specific page, you see I just have a basic picture, Fairleigh Dickinson. I have an evaluations page where I'll put, hey, you guys think I stink. And I'll put that there at the end of class. And then I have a courses tab. So when I just click courses, it just says, please find the information on all the courses I've taught in the dropdown. So you're in Info 2105. So I go ahead and click that. We have the course description of the class, a link to that syllabus, as I mentioned. And you see here at the top, the domain name / the folder name / the file that were opened. That is the full URL. Notice it's from the syllabus folder, so that is included in the URL. And then you see below here, we have our recordings of the class sessions we've had in a nice little box for you to look through. If you go back to the courses dropdown, you'll see the 2 classes I'm teaching in the spring. Website design and management, digital media and publishing. So you click on them, all they have is just the description. The link for the syllabus isn't ready yet because the information hasn't been uploaded yet. So within your WordPress file, you could go ahead and create new posts, which is more common with a blog. And you could create different pages. So as you saw with that courses page, it just had a simple message up. Use the drop down to find all the info for the courses. The evaluations, as you saw, had nothing in it. I have the home page set up as the front page. Usually with a WordPress website, you can have it set up to where that home page is a different. Let's see if I could actually show you guys exactly how that works. There we go. So for the home page settings with a WordPress page, you could either set a static page like I did called home, where all it shows is, hey, this is me. This is a picture of Beckton Hall. And here's some information about when I started. Or you could select your latest posts instead, which would show you any of the posts you've created. Usually it would be the most recent 5, the most recent 10, whatever you specifically set it for. But for these purposes, as I showed you with the website, all I have to care about is post the information for the class. Make sure you're available for it. So the home page doesn't need to have anything on it. Whereas if I were to open my personal professional page with all of these specifics that I have there, I have more plugins I have to update. Okay, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
But you notice here, when I click posts, I have 53 different posts. So when I go to that specific page, you'll notice they all pop up. Okay, they're all available instead of just a static page. And then on the left or right-hand side here, I have a full list of all of them. So you'll notice design, all these things I've talked about play a role in how you're setting up your specific page. And all of your different offerings. You may need a specific dedicated server because, like in my case, I have 9 different pages between myself and different clients. So I have a dedicated server. They each take up a certain portion of those needed specific resources. So Epic Gamer sat in class this whole time and never identified themselves, huh? So both Joshes are here, Dylan's here, Taj is here. So Epic Gamer is either Eva or Jonathan. Epic Gamer, reveal yourself. Are you Eva or Jonathan? So this way you get participation points. Now, Dylan, do you know who Epic Gamer Moment 62 is?
I do not. You should just add Epic Gamer Moment as a student to the class
I don't know if I can,
and then just have them as attended.
but I don't know who it is, if it's Jonathan or Eva. We want to give them their 2 points, but they're not answering.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. I guess
It's,
both of them will get 0 points.
it's kind of funny, but you know.
I know. An Epic Gamer, no response. You don't want to tell us who you are? Are you Jonathan or Eva? Deliver us from Eva. Okay. So, even though next week is Halloween, we do have class virtually. Hopefully, we'll be able to get through that quickly. Like Dylan probably wants to go out, do some Halloween, get some candy. That's fine. And then in 2 weeks, even though it is election day, we're also going to have class, but that's going to be face to face. We'll have the 7th and 14th both back in class. Then the 28th and 5th remote again. And then the last class for your presentations will be face to face. So basically, remote, face to face, remote, remote, face to face. The 3 of each for the remainder of the semester to make sure that everything happens on the up and up. And I'm sure you're all excited. There's no homework for tonight. So go ahead and work on your proposal, fix it up, submit it early if you so choose. So if there are no questions, and if Epic Gamer doesn't want to tell us if it's Eva or Jonathan, I'll see everybody next week.
Have a good night, Professor.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Professor, did you see my email?